Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thanks so much for joining us for this afternoon's webinar. Today is all about Eloqua Guided Campaigns, a new way to drive revenue. So let's dive in and have a close look at what Eloqua Guided Campaigns could be for your organization. So just some housekeeping. For those of you who attend regularly, you'll know that we record our sessions and you will receive a link to access the replay within a week or two. And we use the Q&A throughout. So please, at any point, if you have any questions, use that. Any questions are visible, though, to everybody. So please be aware of that. So you can also upvote any other question, just in case you had the same question. And of course, the Zoom chat function is available as well if you'd rather keep that query private. So please go ahead, use those various tools to engage. We'd love to hear from you and any questions that you have throughout the session. My name is Derek Bell. I'm your host for today's session, and I'm joined by Adrian Jones, our CEO and founder, who is assisting with Q&A and also with chat. So if I miss something, Adrian should pick that up. So again, thanks so much for joining us. All right, so what's our plan for the next short while? First of all, any submitted questions, this is a regular, so you do have the ability to submit a question at the point of registering for today's session. We'll then jump into guided campaigns, give you some context and help you understand what they are, who are they designed for, and also some tips for you to think about how you might get started with guided campaigns with your own organization. Then if we have time, we'll dive into some of the 25A release features, not everything, but a few of the high points that we saw. We covered these a little bit last month, but we did have a couple of follow-up points from last month that I wanted to cover for you as well. And of course, Q&A. But as I said, Q&A is really throughout. So please don't delay with your questions. If you have them, go ahead and submit them. And on that point, this month, nobody submitted a question at the point of registering. However, I might just remind you, if you simply go to myeloqua.com at any point, you'll be taken to the user group microsite, and you can log a question at any point. So if you're next Thursday, you're kind of thinking, oh, hang on a minute, how do I do that? Or what was that? Just go to myeloqua.com and go ahead and submit your question, and we'll receive that and we'll make sure we answer that question during the next live webinar. If it's pressing, we'll come back to you immediately, but we will certainly share your question and a response at the next user group. So yeah, please take advantage of that. Alrighty, so welcome to Guided Campaigns, and lots of terms and phrases. If you visit the Oracle website, you'll see all sorts of blurbs and context around Guided Campaigns and what it is. But I would suggest to you it really is a fresh approach to some campaign design. And not just the campaign design, but the way you go about building the campaign within Eloqua, and also who within your organization could be the candidates for guided campaigns. So let's jump in and have a close look. One of the key things that Oracle have been focusing on, certainly over the last couple of years, is this notion of moving beyond simple sales and marketing alignment to unification. And as a visual, I'll explain the rubbish bins here for you in just a moment. For those of you in Sydney, you may or may not be familiar with these trash bins that you see adorning all of our train stations. Yeah, mostly the train stations, and some bus stops as well, perhaps, but certainly train stations. Now, when these bins first came into, first installed, which was a year or so, I think it was, after 9/11, you can see they're clear, they're glass, so you can obviously see what's in them. And then the plastic bag that you can see that holds the rubbish is also clear. So we can see there's I think a Diet Coke can in there, and there's a bottle of something else in the can on the left, and it looks like someone's lunch in the right, probably in the garbage area. The problem was when they first installed these bins, there was a lack of alignment, and you could suggest maybe a lack of unification between the physical infrastructure people that build these things and install them and the procurement team at City Rail, because those plastic bags for the first, I want to say maybe the first year or so, were frosted so that you couldn't see through them. So the whole point of these bins is from a security point of view, so that if anything is in those bins that is potentially harmful, is more easily visible. So the frosted bags were useless. So So the thing I've always pondered, and I've thought about this over the years, it always makes me laugh when I look at these bins, that there's definitely a lack of, or there was a lack of alignment or a lack of unification between the procurement team and between the physical facilities team and what was actually happening. Now, they eventually got aligned and were ordering the right garbage bags to put in those bins so that we can see them as you see them today on the screen. But Oracle has observed that this growth and this need for unification is growing, and that the merging of our sales and our marketing teams is ever greater, and the demands being placed, obviously, on the marketing team, which we would all be keenly aware of, is only growing. And so we need to be more unified in what we're doing with our compadres in marketing and sales. And I would extend to that as well the service teams as well, really. I mean, the business as a whole. And so guided campaigns is one way that Eloqua is looking to address that. And hopefully, as we progress throughout the day, you'll feel the same way as you see some of the tactics and some of the strategies behind what guided campaigns is all about. So the focus, definitely from Oracle's point of view, in these initial stages, is that this is all about accelerating revenue and saving time for marketers. So it's about marketers being able to build on-brand and ready-to-go content that can be accessed by sales or service or really anyone within the organization. But they do it through a really prescriptive, guided process. So here you'll see the description, the use of the word wizard. We've all used wizards over the years in an IT construct, and a wizard is usually a way of you do A, then you do B, then you do C, and maybe you have to go back and edit, that's fine, but then you move forward again. So it's a very prescriptive process that you go through. Now, for those of you on the call who are regular users of things like the multi-step campaign and the campaign canvas within Eloqua, personally, I love it. Some people can get a little overwhelmed by it. And now, if you're using Eloqua every day, that's fine. You kind of get it. But if you've got colleagues who maybe are pushing out one campaign a month and trying to get them to recall every aspect and function, perhaps of the multi-step campaign is just not quite hitting the mark. And so there are ways that we can improve that. And that's part of what guided campaigns is all about. The other flip side, or the other aspect to this process, is advanced targeting and segmentation. So there are a whole range of ways that you can create your segments, and many of you will use the filter criteria within segments in order to do that. You may have lists of people who are specifically subscribed to certain things. You may have others where there are some campaigns where maybe the segmentation is created externally to Eloqua and it's a manual upload via Excel. Generally not the most ideal scenario, especially from a security point of view, and Excel files floating around the office with personally identifiable information. But it's the reality. It's still how some people choose to do their segmentation. But what the advanced or the guided campaigns offers is the ability for the guided campaigns user to access or choose from pre-created segments built with intelligent account profiling. So if we look at the connection between a CRM platform and Eloqua, where we have the account construct coming from the CRM and all of the associated contacts, etc., then you start to overlay things like industry, geography. It could be buying groups, for instance. It could be levels of seniority, for example, all of those different things. What we can do is create these pre-created segments for the guided campaigns user to access and choose from. Now we can tailor further. There's no real limit on what you can tailor, but just as a starting point, maybe that's, and I've got some examples here I'll show you to kind of get you thinking as to what might be easiest. So the key outcome from Oracle's point of view is that this whole campaign construct, the guided campaign, is that it develops conversation-ready opportunities for sales. And so regardless if you're thinking, I'll talk to these use cases through in a moment, and we'll cover that in a bit more detail. But the nice thing is that the integration between Eloqua and, for example, Oracle Sales Cloud, the CRM platform, or Salesforce CRM, for instance, that opportunities can be created automatically via the integration. Okay, so in many cases, let's consider that these campaigns have been potentially built by sales, based on the content that you've created for them from a marketing point of view. And so we can set all sorts of rules in place as to how that happens and how those opportunities get created. We'll cover a bit more of that here in just a moment. The other part that's coming and is on the roadmap is the idea of generative content to be helpful in the guided campaigns process. So when you're accessing templates, these templates can obviously be pre-written. You can provide some level of editing capability to the individual guided campaigns user. But down the track, we're also going to be able to look at generative content as one aspect of that as well. Okay, so which user community will gain the most? Well, I'd argue it's possibly each community outside of marketing, because there is so much to be gained. And also marketing from that time-saving point of view, as Oracle indicated. Top use cases, okay, unified revenue operations. So really making it simpler for the selling organization, whatever that may be. If you're in higher education, think about agents, for instance, offshore. Is it would it be easier for them to be able to upload relevant prospective students that they're talking to and run them through a 5-step nurture campaign, okay, that covers off some of the key things that an individual might need to know about your university? If you're in a software company or a manufacturer of some sort and you've got a new product that's coming out, maybe this is an opportunity where the sales team can reach out directly to their installed base and have a good chat with them and use some pre-built emails, etc., and offers to get them understanding more about what this new product or service is. So give them a little bit more control, but using content created that is on brand and developed by the marketing team. Distributed marketing. So now think about teams outside of head office, I suppose. We see this quite a bit in this region, in Asia Pac, where we might have a core team based in one geographic location, and then they have smaller teams elsewhere. And maybe those smaller teams based in other geographies are focusing on, tailored newsletters. And it could be within a state, or it could be within a small geography. For instance, maybe it's they run events on a fairly regular basis. They're repetitive. It's the same process every time. It's obviously just the messaging that would change, things like that. So we can start to push some of this out to those organizations to give them a little bit more control over that time frame. They'll then start to realize that, well, I need to get these things organized, and I can't just drip feed pieces of information through to marketing. So if they want the control, let them have the control. Again, based on all of the branding and permissions that you create for them in order to have access. Sales empowerment. So enabling sellers to drive brand-approved ongoing engagement with customers and prospects, so differentiate between the two. Think about onboarding campaigns potentially. There's a whole swag of applications that could be done that you could allow these different organizations to have access to. If we think then about the partner channel environment, or again, from a higher education point of view, agents again, or franchisees and those sorts of bodies, is it worthwhile looking to give them access to create some, or not create the campaigns, but have access to campaigns that they may want to run on an individual basis. And they may want to put through 5 people through a campaign, or they may want to put 500 people through a campaign. There could be a range of different applications for what they need to do. So hopefully some of those use cases have kind of got you thinking. Please feel free to throw some questions or chat to us as we move through. So what I want to do here is just give you an idea of what that experience is going to look like for the guided campaigns user. What do they do? How do they go about this process? So the way it starts off is we choose a tactic, and I'm going to show you some of those tactics here in a moment. That's the first thing. Is it a tactic? Oh, sorry, no, what is the tactic? So is it an event? Is it a single campaign? Is it a nurture campaign? What is it that I'm trying to do? From there, they then select an audience. So as I said, you can look at pre-built audiences, or you can look at providing the ability for them to upload an Excel file, which will then load in the relevant people in that process. And that would create the audience or segment. Then they go through and select and personalize the content, look at the steps, the details, etc. All that sort of fun stuff that makes up the campaign. So think your emails, your landing pages, your forms, all those sorts of bits and pieces, having all of those things come together where they're enabled to do some editing, but not a lot of editing. Okay, so we can't change the color of the logo, and we can't change the font and those sorts of things. Okay, we can't change buttons, and you can lock down certain sections just as you can today with your templates within Eloqua. The same construct applies. Now, the key thing with this next step is setting the qualification criteria, because you remember I shared with you a minute ago how at the end of this guided campaign, the objective would be to actually move into the CRM and create opportunities. So we could have skipped past the lead process and we go straight to opportunity, where there are conversation-ready opportunity. So what is the qualification criteria for that? Is it the fact that somebody has clicked on an email and submitted a form and provided specific responses? Is that the criteria that then pushes them through into the CRM to become an opportunity? So we have control over that process. Now, the Guided Campaigns user does have access to a range of reports where they can look at down to individual level or at a campaign level, how many people have been through, but their view is very focused at an account level as well, which is quite helpful in most cases. Not every case, but in most cases, that account level view is quite helpful. And you'll see that here in just a moment. And then the magic happens, right? So we start selling, hopefully, with some context. So here we have the sales team who have contributed to the actual build of this campaign. They've identified the people they want to go through those campaigns. They're pushed through to sales into the CRM, and now it's up to them to progress that to a closed won opportunity. So that, in essence, is the flow or the process that goes through. So what I wanted to do was just walk you through some screens to give you an idea as to what it looks like. Let me just show you. It's easier just to show you. So the first thing we want to do is select a tactic. And this is what the screen is essentially going to look like, or does look like, I should say. There are 3 tactics visible on the screen here. You can see there's a simple email campaign, which is much like the one you're familiar with in Eloqua today. It's a segment and it's an email, and that's kind of it. We then move on to the multi-step nurture as an option. And so this one enables you to, by default, it has sort of placeholders for 2 emails, but you can add more should you wish. And then just as you do on the campaign canvas, where you may put in a wait step and you may ask, did they click or did they open, etc., the Guided Campaigns user has the ability to access that function, but they're not seeing it on the multi-step campaign. They're seeing it here on the screen through the Guided Campaign experience. And then you see event promotion. So I think we selected multi-step in our scenario there. So multi-step nurture. So the next one is the audience and trying to locate our audience that we want to look at. Now, this one, I could have gone on forever in options and scenarios here. But if you look at this one, for instance, maybe it's my target accounts, okay? So in order for my to work from a Guided Campaign user's point of view, that really needs the CRM integration in play, because the my, as in the individual salesperson who is creating the campaign, they need to be the owner of certain contacts or accounts within the CRM platform. And for those of you who have that integrated today, you know that information flows between the two, for example. So there are all sorts of, there's no limit here really in relation to what you can do. You'll notice there in the top right-hand corner of the screen, there is an upload audience option. So if there is an Excel file that's been used, maybe there's been a trade show of some sort or a conference, and a list has been provided, well, then you can upload that list as well into the platform. Okay, so now comes time to create our assets and our emails that we need to go along with it. And so here we have an interface. You'll see at the top there, we've got stage 1 and stage 2, and then the plus icon that you can see here. And this one is nurture email number 1, for example. So that's one thing that we probably need to think through, is how we name these different assets. And we need to, I know many of you have Some of you have very long sort of naming conventions that make sense to you and make sense to your Eloqua community. But this is a different community that are accessing assets. And so we need to rethink, I think, and look at shortening at the same time, potentially, the names of some of these assets that we give. And then, of course, someone in marketing is going to have to own that and making sure they're up to date and they're current and so on and so forth. You can preview like you can in Eloqua. You can look at it on mobile. Everything is responsive out of the box, just like you experience within Eloqua. It's kind of the drag and drop scenario. It's all much the same sort of experience, but of course there are limitations that you can place on them at the same time, which is good. All right, so then once the campaign is kind of underway, what we're looking at is some reporting. And so you'll notice here when you look at this reporting, we start off with 1,000 emails that have been sent, which in fact is 125 accounts. We can see email sends, delivered, bounce backs, the usual pieces of information that you and I would be familiar with. And then we start to see a different way that Oracle is presenting this information, which I think is kind of cool from a visual point of view. It's pretty clear as kind of what's going on. And so the numbers obviously diminish based on different things. So delivered, unique opens or no action versus unique click-throughs, etc. And then as you start to look at the bottom of the screen, what you're seeing is now the information broken down at an account level. So remember, we've got 125 accounts sitting in this campaign. And here we can start to see some of the individual account reporting, which is typically how our friends in sales probably want to look at things. If we think about account-based marketing and all those sorts of fun things, it just kind of makes sense. Now, once we get to that criteria where the criteria has been met and we can push them into the CRM, this is a shot. You may think this is Eloqua, but this is not actually. This is Oracle Sales Cloud, which is the Oracle CRM platform, which is all Redwood's themed as well, just like you and I experience in Eloqua every day. So here is an opportunity that's being created directly within the Sales Cloud environment with all the relevant information that a salesperson would need and expect. If you're a Salesforce client, then you'd be more familiar with this interface. And so here we have an opportunity that's been created within the CRM, exactly the same opportunity, I think, if we go back and compare the two. Just one's gone to Salesforce and one's gone into Oracle Sales Cloud. You've got all of that information right there. Now the ball is well and truly in the court of the sales team to manage that process. Because you'll remember, well, I'm sure you've experienced it, one of the weakest links that has kind of always been a weak link is the connection between the lead going into the CRM platform. Then the lead is converted to an opportunity and the attribution can sometimes be lost. So if the lead isn't actually converted from a technical point of view, using the system to convert it, the salesperson may just go to an account and create the opportunity, which means then there is no attribution tracking between the two. This alleviates that problem, which will dramatically help your reporting, which is a great thing. Okay, so what can this guided campaign person do, and what can they access? So the first thing, I just kind of wanted this visual over here on the right-hand side that yes, guided campaigns is obviously part of Eloqua. We're accessing Eloqua content, emails, and segments, and so on and so forth. But the guided campaigns user is very quarantined from the core platform. Their user, the way the user profile has been created, is they cannot access the multi-step campaigns. They cannot access emails from within Eloqua. The only access they have when they get to Eloqua is literally the My Eloqua home screen, and that's it. They can't see anything else. There is no top-line menu except for the home icon. That's it. Okay, so they actually have a separate URL that they use to access Eloqua. Login screen looks much like what you and I are used to. It just simply says Eloqua Guided Campaigns instead of Eloqua. So you know you're in the right place when they're logging in, etc. Now, there's all sorts of things that we can do to restrict what they can access and modify and change and all that sort of stuff. All of that probably we need to sit down and probably talk about that in a bit more detail as to how far you want people to be able to go. For example, you can restrict their ability to actually activate a campaign. So maybe the activation of the campaign comes to marketing and doesn't rest with sales. Look, I'd say to you in the fullness of time that maybe that's not the best outcome. It's going to depend on every organization, but if we really want to maximize the speed and all those sorts of things, we don't want marketing to necessarily be a roadblock into activation of campaigns. But your decision, and one that you've got the flexibility to make, which is great. And that I showed you there just a moment ago, some of the example of the reporting. So they don't have access to insight, nor do they have access to the current dashboards sitting within Eloqua. They have their own dashboards and reports that are available through the Guided Campaigns user interface. Now, the small print at the bottom of the screen, there's always small print. So the Guided Campaigns tool is an app, okay? It's an app like other apps that you may use within Eloqua today, and it sits on top of Eloqua, and it's a user licensing scenario. For clients who are using the standard or enterprise editions of Eloqua, if you're on standard, you have 5 licenses included with your current licensing structure. If you're on enterprise, you have 10 free licenses to use. Now, my understanding is, and I don't have a dollar figure for you, but my understanding is that the per license fee is not through the roof. It's quite affordable, which is good news. The reason I think Eloqua wants to give the standard and enterprise clients a few licenses to play with is to hopefully uncover the value and discover the value for yourself and realize that, okay, right, yeah, we'll get some more of these. I think we have some more users within our company that could get benefit from this as well. Okay, any questions before I move on? Just having a look. Okay, I can't see any Q&A there. All right, so getting started. How do you get started? what happens? All right. First thing I think we need to think about is the user communities. Who within our organization are probably the most likely candidates to take advantage. Now, if we look at the Oracle direction and what they're looking at, salespeople, sales operations is kind of number one. That's where they see the major benefit. Sure, I get that. I understand that. Certainly with the ability and the integration with the CRM platforms, makes perfect sense. But I think there are other applications beyond that that could be quite helpful. I think about different clients who have teams within their business, typically outside of marketing, that maybe the only Eloqua campaign they do is to create a newsletter. And that's okay. It's once a month, or maybe it's once a fortnight, or whenever it might be. And so these people are coming into Eloqua not on a regular basis. Well, they're on a regular, but a less regular basis. And so just getting them up to speed on multi-step campaigns and those sorts of things is a bit tougher, perhaps. So something like a guided campaign would help to streamline that for them, and just maybe take away some of the all those different options that you and I enjoy as Eloqua users. They don't need them. And so maybe something like this is good for them. Now, look, I have seen examples in some clients where Eloqua is used, obviously, as the corporate email solution. And then you've just got that little one renegade team who are using MailChimp, for example. Okay, so they're creating these emails that are not quite on brand. They look a little bit different. It's a separate opt-in, opt-out scenario, which in itself is a financial risk. Etc. Maybe something like guided campaigns would be an easy way to bring those people in. Get rid of the MailChimp subscription and bring everybody in-house so that everybody's using the same platform. Distributed marketing, so regional teams. I mentioned this one a little bit earlier. I think that's a good candidate for this type of user community. And then as you start to think across different departments within the organization, maybe human resources, when we think about employee communications, in reality, the way we communicate with our staff has to be as good as the way we communicate externally. We want to provide the same visual stimulation. We want to provide the same elegance in the way that things are presented and calls to action and information is collected and so on and so forth. And so maybe people within the human resources area could use Eloqua and guided campaigns to help from that point of view, and even public relations. So pushing out of press releases to predefined bodies, whether it's to journalists or whoever it may be. PR teams could potentially also benefit from something like guided campaigns. especially when you look at tailoring and locking down different audiences, etc. Maybe you've got different journalists that cover different topics, for instance. All of those things can kind of be factored in. So, first thing, user communities. Now, creating the audiences. This one, I sat down with Adrian yesterday and we kind of went through this. And I showed him this, and he's like, "Yeah, but there's so much more." I'm like, "Yeah, I get there's so much more, but I can't put like 20,000 bullet points on the screen, right?" So I need you to think this one through for yourself to a large degree. Understand that there really aren't limitations. It's just based on the data that you have. And what are the most common ways potentially that your sales team or your various guided campaigns user communities, what do their audiences look like? And so can we create them? So I've given you some examples. Is it customers in a specific industry versus prospects in a specific industry? Could it be business partners in a specific industry? Could it be linked to application status for a university, that is, within a specific geography, for example? If there are regular comms generally to these groups, then you can use Eloqua's segmentation and filter criteria to really target and automate this process in a much healthier way. The secret is always clean data. Good data is always a better scenario. Bad data in, bad data out sort of scenario. We can then move to that concept of my. You remember we looked at that screen before. It had my I think it was my primary accounts. And so that is the subset of customers owned by a specific salesperson. And the source of truth for that information is the CRM platform, okay? Whether it's leads or contacts or whatever the case may be, or at the account level as well. Buying groups is obviously a big change for many organizations in the way that they're doing some of their marketing. And so being able to have a predefined buying group, for example, as an individual segment that could be targeted as well with the release of new product or notices, or you've currently got this product, you should consider upgrading to this product, those sorts of things. And then creating of the assets, we need to obviously build the content that the guided campaigns user will have access to and design it. I think, again, we were talking more about this over the last couple of weeks and certainly yesterday. I thought coming at it from a campaign by campaign basis is probably a good way to do it. So if you're, for instance, you have a new product that's coming to market and you may want to look at communicating to those people who have the current product, but you want to incentivize them to upgrade to the new product. That could be one option. Within the university sector, it's kind of really natural when you look at all the different degrees and courses, etc., that can be completed from a prospective student point of view. How do you communicate with those people? And so we could look at a nurture that is very specific. Again, in my mind, I was thinking very much of these offshore agents and their role, and having attended a few of these different conferences with some of the higher ed folks, these offshore agents are quite protective to a degree of the people they're talking to, which are, understandable. This is going to require them to have a level of trust, though, because they would need to upload their relevant lists in order for you to be able to do the marketing. So imagine if your marketing as one higher education body is just, advanced and streets ahead of what your competitors are doing, then maybe your agents will feel much more inclined to want to participate because they feel it's giving a much better experience potentially to those students. Event promotion is another one. Event promotion is kind of easy because it's quite repeatable. It's usually just the message that obviously changes from event to event. So whether it's a webinar or in person, I initially had hybrid. That I don't know. I'm going to have to do a little bit of playing with that one. I'm not sure if guided campaigns is the best solution for a hybrid event, but certainly for a webinar or an in-person event, these are well-oiled pieces of infrastructure that we have with Eloqua. We can do it kind of with our eyes closed. It's easy, so that one shouldn't be a problem. Hybrid, we'll come back and talk more about hybrid at another point. The newsletter campaigns, again, I thought was a good one. So from a newsletter campaign point of view, again, creating your your email assets. And instead of just this construct of save as an old one, but actually accessing a template that enables the individual to go through and be on brand, have certain aspects of it locked down where they can't change, and other parts where they can. All those sorts of things will help from a branding point of view. Okay. So hopefully that's given you some thinking material in relation to what guided campaigns could potentially do for you. So for many of you, guided campaigns is available today if you're in a standard or enterprise edition of Eloqua. Now, if you're not sure if you're in a standard or enterprise edition, there is a cheats way to figure that out. So if you come into Eloqua and go to lead scoring, when you get to lead scoring, up in this top left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see something like this. Now, if it says, forget the 6, it's the 15 that we're interested in. 15 tells you that you're on a standard edition of Eloqua. Now, I can't remember what the enterprise one, what the number is, but with enterprise, I think you have something like 50 lead score models, I believe. But if it's more than 15, you're on an enterprise edition. And if you're on basic, you have the ability to have one active lead score model. You can have multiple models, but only one active model at a time. Okay, so that's the quickest and easiest way to determine which edition of Eloqua you're on. Okay, all right. So that QR code, by the way, if you scan that QR code, and I'll show it to you again here in just a moment, that will go straight to a calendar invite for Adrian and myself, and it's a Zoom. Find a time that suits you and your team. Just go ahead and book a time, and we'd love to have a chat with you about guided campaigns and look at how we can maybe help you develop a strategy to roll it out. Start with probably a particular group within the organization, guinea pig with them, work out the tweaks, etc., and then potentially look at rolling it out to other parts of your organization as well. So, but yeah, I'll show you that QR code here again in just a moment. So what's new and what's coming? So we touched on a number of these points last month, but I just wanted to revisit them because there were a couple of people who had some questions. One of the nice ones is the addition or restoration, I like to call it, of the folder path breadcrumbs in Redwood. So look, I'm just going to do a little bit of jumping backwards and forwards here. So if we go into Eloqua, and let's say we're looking at emails, if we go to the all area of the screen, and let's say I click on administration of finance, and then maybe I go into another folder, etc. So this is what we're talking about right here. The fact that I can see what's happening and I can see the folder structure of where the asset is that I'm looking for or that I want to file. We were kind of running a little bit blind with that gone. And so the fact that that's now available again is making life a lot easier from a filing point of view. The key giveaway that people were having problems was if you came to the root directory, so clicking on all, and if you found a whole bunch of emails just sitting there floating all by themselves and not actually filed, that's probably as a result of people not being able to even figure out where the folder structure was. So that's a great one. Certainly makes life a little bit easier, which is good. Then segmentation and form template manager. So now this is something that's only available in Redwood, and you're going to see more and more of this as new features are rolled out. If you're not using Redwood, if you're choosing to go back to the classic interface, then you'll start to miss out on some of the innovations that are coming into the platform. So what this means, segment and form template manager, is just as you have the functionality and you've had for many years, the ability to have a landing page and email template manager where you can update them and make changes so the team has access to the most current templates. We now have that exact same functionality within segments and forms. And I'm thrilled by this because the forms especially, segments is great, but forms especially, making sure forms are up to date and the processing steps are doing what they need to do today and based on any other changes, because so much of what a form does in those processing steps is talk often to programs and often talks to the CRM platform as well. And they're very dynamic environments and they change. And so this enables you to avoid the mess of doing a save as of a form and having a much nicer range of templates to choose from, which is much smarter. That QR code will subscribe you to our important updates subscription, which comes out once a quarter following the release of Eloqua. I'll show it to you here again in just a minute. Scan it anytime, and we'd love to have you become a subscriber if you're not already today. Now, this one we also mentioned last month, but there was a point we weren't quite clear on. Let me explain to you how this one works. So in the past, prior to this feature being available, you would have information stored on your Eloqua contact, and through different campaigns, you may take some information from that individual and store it on a custom object, a fairly normal thing for an Eloqua user to do. Now, some of that information may be inert, as it doesn't, it's not personally identifiable, but some of it may be personally identifiable. And that's where the problem comes in. So we would delete the contact. Great, because maybe someone said, hey, I need you to remove me from all of your systems. So of course you need to oblige. You delete the contact. However, the custom objects are still populated with information from that individual, including their email address. Okay, that became messy, and we had to go through and search and delete, and it was a little bit time consuming. So now at the custom object level, there is an option that you check that says if a contact in this custom object is deleted over here as a contact, then I need you, Eloqua, to delete all related information in this custom object linked to that same email address. So it's a much cleaner way to go through that process. And if we think about privacy and governance, expectations of people you're talking to, your clients, your partners, your customers, etc., it's a much cleaner and more efficient way to manage their privacy within the platform. So that's great news. So if your administrator needs a hand with that one, please reach out to us with any of these points. Obviously, please reach out to us and we can help you navigate that if you're not quite clear on how to make that happen. Then the LinkedIn Company Campaign Manager app. Again, same subscription QR code there in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the company matching service that is now generally available. So it was in controlled availability, now generally available for everybody. So if you've been using the LinkedIn Campaign Manager app, you'll be familiar with how that works. This now enables you to look at company matching, which could be quite helpful. So certainly from a B2B point of view, and certainly from a, I think, financial services, I think, different buying groups, those sorts of organizations, IT, etc. Probably less so, say, the university sector, less so the consumer-oriented type stuff, because you're probably not spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. Well, you may be, but you're not really looking at accounts. You're looking more at individuals, potentially, within those mixes. So all of those things are available. But yeah, in our subscription, you'll find a lot more information sent to you on a regular basis. Now, this one, we got a number of emails this week following this email that went out from Oracle to their dear Oracle Cloud customer base, which is you, by the way. You'll notice that in brackets at the end, it says if in use. Okay, so for many of our clients, that is clients who have given us access to their instance of Eloqua, this has been rectified. In some cases, it was rectified 2 years ago. It's something that they've been talking about, but the deadline is now upon us for the 11th of March. And so this is just kind of like a final notification. So if you saw this email, and if you're currently a customer of Marketing Cube, then we're pretty confident that you're absolutely fine. If you're unsure, please send an email through to support@marketingcube.com.au. If you're not a Marketing Cube client and you're not sure and that deadline is approaching and you'd like a hand, please email support@marketingcube.com.au. We're nice people. We will reach out to you, and I'm sure we can help you get an answer to that question. So to work out if it is being used or not, because that's kind of the critical thing. Okay. All right, so there's that QR code again in relation to guided campaigns. Feel free to scan that. At that point, we're just about at the end, and my gosh, it's 2:45. That's a miracle. But we'll be back next month. We'll send you some information. We'll get replays to you so you can access this and maybe talk to your team in a bit more detail about guided campaigns and show you where to go for a bit more information. But if you'd like to have a chat, please scan that QR code or just reach out to me via email. Either is fine. Through that, you can access my calendar and book a time in right now that suits you. And Adrian and I would love to have a chat with you at some point. So thank you very much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you next month. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to hang around here for a few minutes and take those. But otherwise, have a great week and thank you so much again.